Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Michael's Matters. And on a pretty regular basis, doing these videos, I come across a lot of data that just really strikes me as interesting because it does give a lot of context to what retirement in the United States in 2023 actually looks like. One of these things that I never really noticed until, well, I guess I did, is that retirement in the United States looks very, very different for men than it does for women. Everything from how much money one needs to have, how long somebody expects to retire, all has a big effect on how folks actually retire and how it's different for men and women. So today, I want to share the top 5 retirement differences between men and women. Now, before we get to the video, if you like these videos, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, if you at least find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe because it really does help the channel to grow. And we, again, are so thankful for that. But also because you get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. All right, now let's get down to the video. So first up today, and I guess this would be the number one difference in retirement between men and women, and it really is probably the biggest difference, is how long they can anticipate to be retired. Of course, this is a bit of a touchy subject, I guess, but the reality is that the average woman in the United States in 2023, well, they are going to be retired for a considerably longer period of time than men, and not just a little bit, but by a fair amount. If we look at the actuarial tables from Social Security for the year of 2023, in the mid-range, Social Security anticipates that men who are currently at 65 years old will live an additional 17.99 years above and beyond 65 years old. But for women who are currently 65 years old, they're anticipating them to live about 3 years more at 21 years above and beyond 65 years old, which means that they will have to plan a retirement until the age of 86 years old versus 83 years old for men on average. Interesting enough, for those men and women who are born in 2023, so those folks who are being born right now, the gap in the lifespan between men and women is widening as they anticipate at the intermediate level that men born in 2023 will only live until 81 years old, while women will live out to 86 years old, which kind of morbidly means that men born right now will live less long than those who are 65 right now. A last note about retirement longevity is the fact that the number of women receiving Social Security benefits in their full retirement age range is lower than that of men at the age of 72 years old, where in 2022 there were 1,330,052 men receiving Social Security benefits and roughly the same amount of women, 1,324,661. But by the age of 94, when folks start to get up to those higher ages, that number roughly doubles. So there are twice as many women getting benefits as there are men. And by the time they get to 99 plus, that number goes even higher and triples. So essentially there are 22,000 men who are getting Social Security benefits at 99 years old or older, while there are 61,000 women. So definitely something to think about. Now, to go along with those differences in lifespan, another big difference between men and women's retirement is how much savings are needed for those retirements. Now, the traditional logic is that by the time somebody retires, they should have about 10x of what their pre-retirement income was if they plan to retire, let's say, at 67 years old. According to Social Security, for people who did retire in 2021, that's the last time that we have the numbers, they had a working life average at a full-time with an income of $50,000 a year for women and $60,000 a year for men, which, to keep math simple, would mean $500,000 in savings for retirement for women and $600,000 for men. And if we average that out, $550,000 for both of them on average put together. But considering an average woman may need to have savings to live an additional 3 or 4 or even more years, like we saw on the actual tables, that means that the number in savings that they would need to have needs to go up by additionally $150,000 in savings, or $50,000 more for each additional year. Of course, these numbers are a bit mushy because they are averages, and the reality is that not everybody is average. In fact, nobody is basically average. But my point is that the additional longevity that women have in their livelihoods is going to take some additional considerations when they're planning for their retirement. So the number two difference is the fact that it's just going to cost more because women are retired for longer. Now, another pretty dramatic difference, so number three, with respect to retirement, is the amount of retirement benefits that women get in comparison to men. Now, there are a huge variety of factors that really play into this because the average male who is 66 years old in 2022 got Social Security Retirement Benefits that, on average, again, were at $1,916.68, while women at that same age, at 66 years old, have an average Social Security benefit, again, in 2022, of $1,530.75, which is a $385.93 difference, or about 25% more that men get that women don't. The reason for this discrepancy, first, is that many women have work histories that include a lot more time spent doing part-time work, as well as the fact that many women are assigned caretaker roles at home, taking care of children or older parents, grandparents, etc., for multiple years. But that labor, although valuable, is going unpaid. So there definitely is a gender gap that plays a role in these Social Security benefits being much lower. And that roughly stays the same at all ages, from 62 when folks begin to retire all the way up to 99 plus, where there are many more women like we saw, but their benefits are actually still less than most men on average. Now, one of the most startling differences for men and women with regards to retirement, and I guess this one would be number 4, is when they start to retire. Because according to Goldman Sachs, that's the big bank, retirement survey, 60% of women retired earlier than they had planned, and 66% of those women said that they retired for reasons that were outside of their control, which really does pan out in the numbers when we look at Social Security retirement numbers once again. And it's another big reason their benefits are going to be lower than men on average. Because when we look at the number of men versus women who are enrolled in Social Security benefits, starting at the earliest age that one can retire at 62 up to the age of 69, each of those years there are more women than there are men receiving Social Security benefits. How this early retirement affects Social Security benefits is because in the United States, Social Security benefits are based on work history and when benefits are started. By starting retirement at the earliest possible ages at 62 years old, rather than the full retirement age for most people, who is either at 66 or 67 years old, depending on when they were born, it would mean that a person, or a woman in this case, who retired at the earliest possible date or even earlier can take up to a 30% cut in their Social Security benefits as a penalty for retiring early. And with 66% saying that they retired early for reasons that are outside of their control, the biggest reason for this is, again, caretaker duties for family members or for spouses or possibly for children, which really does change the way the dynamic looks for retirees for the fairer sex. One other thing included in the Goldman Sachs survey is that they found that when they asked both of men and women if they ever needed to take time away from the workforce to provide care for their family members, 45% of women said yes and 55% no, while only 40% of men said yes and 60% said no. Now, the last variation in retirement between men and women that I want to talk about today really is one of the most stark realities about retirement in the United States, which is that women oftentimes are at very high risk, especially in those low income levels, of not having enough savings to last them through the retirement. As one final question that we're going to talk about from the Goldman Sachs survey, they asked retirees or participants how much of their pre-retirement savings were covered by their retirement benefits once they retired. And the difference between men and women are really not that vast for the majority of the higher income individuals, where out of the respondents who were surveyed, when they were asked about their retirement income, most have numbers that are pretty close, men and women. But in those lowest income groups, the total amount of retirement benefits, including Social Security benefits, only amounted to about 40% of their pre-retirement savings. And that was the response by 35 women versus 22 men who were surveyed. So overall, looking at these numbers, thinking about what it means to retire in the United States for men and for women, I mean, there are a couple of things that really stand out to me. One is that there are some pretty serious systemic issues in our country that are leaving women in a situation where they're not really able to build a fair and independent retirement. Additionally, the work that they do to raise children like me and you, or really all of us were children at some point, is super undervalued, and it's having a dramatic effect on the lives of the women who decide to do it. Furthermore, the way that Social Security benefits, even if they're married, for spousal benefits or survivors benefits, these Social Security benefits are designed in a way that if a spouse dies, those benefits drop dramatically, which leaves many women in that lower income range in an impoverished situation. And so it makes things like this and things like this in life in general, and decisions for women, it seems to make them considerably more complicated than they are for men. Just really eye-opening to think about overall. Now, this has been Michael's Matters, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video, or at least you found it interesting, or you found it helpful, or maybe even found it useful. And if you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because it really does help the channel to grow, and we are so thankful for that. But also, it means you get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So, for Michael's Matters, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy day.